Hello everybody and welcome. My name's Alison, I'm a professional musician and I run a YouTube channel called the Online Piano and Violin Tutor, which you will see in a link coming up on the screen somewhere now. I have been sent some violin microphones to trial, review, give my opinion of, and basically see what I think from the lovely people from REMIC, which have sent me these microphones that you see here. If I just start by giving you a little bit of a background to the company, and then I will go into what you get. I'm also going to do quite a lengthy demonstration for you as well, so you can hear exactly what the microphone is going to sound like, but that will come a little bit later on. So if I just give you a general background to these microphones, it's a Danish run company. They were founded in 2010 by Larsen. He is the owner of the company. Thorkild and his team have spent many years developing these microphones, and it is also based on himself and his team being many years, of course, in the industry as well, with the know-how being able to develop these microphones that are uniquely set for instrumentalists, or in this case violinists such as myself. They generally tend to base their microphones on the undertones and the overtones of the violin. So what they've done is split the violin frequencies into three sections. So they've got their fundamental tone register, which is the very highest that the violin, or the very highest note register level that the violin can get to, ranging to the very lowest. Then the next thing you've got is the primary overtone register, which is amplified by the soundboard, and it is dependent on the wood of the violin, the varnish of the violin, all those kind of different aspects on the violin. And then you've got the secondary overtone register, which is the friction between the bow and the strings. And what that does is it picks up the movement of air molecules obviously as the bow is moving along the strings. So what I've been sent, first of all, is the V5200LB, which comes in a little box like this. And when you open it up, it's to be honest, it's quite a nice little box actually, because it's quite small and compact to travel with as well. So if I was going out to gigs and things, you know, it's very, very light. It would be no hassle just to pop in my bag, and you know, then I know that if my bag did get knocked around, then I know that the microphone would be nice and safe in this little box. It's a plastic box, not heavy, so it's great. Of course, when you open it up, you get a little instruction leaflet inside as well, or you know, just with a little bit of extra information. But it comes in this neat little pouch here, and when you open it up, the microphone looks like this. So it comes with the cable wrapped around, and the microphone itself kind of looks like this. So when you have your violin and you have the microphone, there are a couple of places where you can actually place the microphone. Now, when I first got this, I must admit, I did have a look at it, and I did wonder what I was going to do with it. However, after looking at the instructions, of course, and it was showing me, I actually thought it was a very, very clever idea. I almost wish that I'd had this, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. The microphone that that I was using, obviously before I had this, was one of these. So it was like a clip-on microphone. So you might have seen it in some of my previous videos where it clips, I clip mine onto the tailpiece, and it sort of hooks over. So 2 places to put the microphone first of all. So what you want to do is, you've got sort of a flat end where you've got the felt end here, which is flat, and then you've got sort of a wedge looking edge here. The flat end obviously goes under the fingerboard, and you just kind of wedge it in, like so. And then the rest of the cable that you've got here, you've got a little sort of like a little wedge, a kind of foam wedge here. What you can do with that is just pop that underneath, or just pop it into the little end of the little hole that you've got there on the fingerboard, and that just nicely sits in there, so you haven't got cable kind of flapping about all over the show. Another good thing about this is that the cable is a silicone woven cable. So the other one that I've got is like a plastic cable, so when that's sometimes hitting against the violin when I'm moving and doing whatever, a mid-record, it's actually picking up the sound of that as well, which means I've got to do another take because it's no good. But because of the wedge foam that you've got here, you just sort of push the foam in, slip it underneath the fingerboard, absolutely no damage at all to your violin, and then you know the cable is sitting safe and sound. The second place that you can put your microphone is going to be in the tailpiece. Now this is where I personally prefer to put the microphone myself, putting it underneath the tailpiece. It's the same thing. You use the flat side, which goes against the body or the wood of the violin, and then you use the wedge. The highest part of the wedge is where the microphone is, the lowest part is obviously where the cable is. So you just sort of push it in, gently push it in and pop it in. Because of the wedge, you can sort of push it in as far down as you like. I push it sort of 2 or 3, 4, almost to the top. I don't want to push it too much, so obviously I don't want to damage my tailpiece. But obviously there's no risk of damage because it's all soft foam, so that's fine. And then the little wedge part of the little foam wedge, if you like, that's on the cable, that does actually move around. You can position that where you like. All I do is just tuck that into the chin rest there, and then again I'm free, the cable's not going anywhere. So the green microphone I've got here, which is the V5200LB, they say that this is for live productions. So if I was playing live with a couple of other band members, if I had a drummer, or if I was in a jazz trio or quartet, something like that, or I was playing in a ceilidh band, or whatever it is, if I'm playing a live situation, possibly with other people, or perhaps you've got an audience listening as well, this is ideal for that. So what this one does is, to kind of put it into layman terms, if you like, or just possibly kind of nutshell it, this just picks up, this is designed to pick up just the violin, and what it does, it tends to, or it's going to try to block out any other sound which is outside about a foot or so of the actual violin. So it would try to block out the other instruments. So if I was playing with I don't know, 5 other people in a band and they too had microphones, I don't want this microphone picking up all the other instruments as well, because when it comes to the mix down stage, if we're all bleeding into everybody else's microphones, it's going to be an absolute nightmare to mix, because I've got my violin sound that's been recorded through this, plus I've got the drummer coming through it as well, and then I've got a bit of saxophone or another string player coming through it as well. So what this is going to do is put in a little bit of suppression, so that it just blocks out some of the sound, audience noises as well, that are a foot or so outside of the violin. Because there is a suppression on there, some sound, the sound has to go along the whole spectrum. So some sound, of course, is going to disappear because it's not taking. If you imagine the sound of my violin when I play is going to fill the whole room, but all this is doing is just taking sort of a small bubble around my violin. So I'm losing some of the ambient sounds outside of the violin, kind of in a sort of a nutshell kind of way. But that's great for live productions, because I don't want to pick up anything outside of my violin. I just want to pick up preferably just me, because it's going to be so much easier to mix me, get my violin to have a nice sound, put some reverb, put some effects, that kind of thing. Otherwise, like I said, if you've got all the drummer and everything, you're going to be adding the effects to him as well and everybody else that you're with. If you want to do a studio recording, of course, then they do have a separate microphone for that, which isn't going to do any suppression, and it is going to pick up the full spectrum, but of course you'd be in a studio environment where it would just be you as well. So I'm going to get on and do some demonstrations now. I'm going to do two different types of demonstrations for you. I'm going to demonstrate the sound of the violin under the fingerboard. I'm going to demonstrate under the tailpiece as well, to see if you can hear any difference. So here are the demonstrations. So like I said before, I for my violin and the way my violin is, and you know, the kind of the sound that comes from the violin, it's very high and it's very sweet. I personally prefer the sound that you get from the tailpiece, but you know, it's just a case of trial and error, depending on, it really doesn't matter. There is no right or wrong way. Some of you might like that nicer, kind of fuller, kind of more gritty sound that you possibly get from underneath the soundboard. But like I said, for me, especially because I do a lot of studio-based recordings as well, you know, recording for albums and backing tracks and all that kind of thing. So for me, underneath the tailpiece works really well with my violin. So I guess in conclusion, it is these microphones, or this microphone. I love the microphone. I genuinely wish that I had this microphone 3 or 4 years ago. There just wasn't anything like it on the market. The only thing that I had was the hook over ones. There are other microphones on the market. I'm sure there were at the time. But that's fine if you've got a budget and you've got, you know, £2,000-3,000 or a couple of $1,000s to spend on a microphone. That would be fine, but obviously that's a little bit out of budget, or it was a little bit out of budget for me then. So, you know, I don't mind paying money to get the nice microphones, but anything above that would, you know, it just depends how deep your pockets are, doesn't it? But this microphone is brilliant. Everything from the whole design to the way the microphone actually works inside. But for me, as a violinist, the most important thing for me was for something that didn't cause, or two things that were important for me, something that didn't cause any damage to my violin, which this certainly doesn't. It's very unobtrusive, and also I wanted something that was going to catch an ambient sound from my violin. I really like the sound that my ears hear. So if you've got something that's attached to the body of the violin, that's going to give you a different sound than what my ears are hearing after the sound has gone through the violin and it's come out and it's come into my ears. So that was more of the sound that I wanted to capture, which is all the overtones and the undertones of the violin, which is exactly what this microphone is based on. So it's a very clever idea, and just the whole way they've executed it, from just everything inside it to the delivery method as well, has been very well thought out, you know, and they've come out with a really good product. So the sound is, I find the sound is nice and clear, it's crisp, it's got a nice good range. There is some slight loss with the green one due to suppression, but again, you really don't want to be using a studio type microphone when you're gigging and you want to record a live performance with other musicians, because that would just be a total nightmare. You'd be picking up so much stuff. But because you'd be sitting within the mix of, say, 4 or 5 other musicians as well, the loss of suppression really wouldn't matter whatsoever. In fact, it's just kind of it's the lesser of two evils, isn't it? What you're losing in suppression, you're gaining a much better mix if you were to use a completely different microphone. So for example, the hook microphone that I had, that would be no good for me, because it's going to pick up everything. It's going to pick up everybody in the back of the room and the audience and all that kind of stuff. Like I said before, I prefer it to go in the tailpiece for me, for my violin, but there's no right or wrong with that. It's just a case of what you like and the sound that you like out of that. The silicone cable is just genius. I've never actually seen anything like that before on a microphone, but it's really good. You'd be surprised how much clanging you get from the cable on the violin, especially when you're moving around and, you know, the cable comes loose and everything. But together with the foam wedge and the cable, I think it's a brilliant idea. It's invisible to the crowd, or it's invisible to the audience as well. So if I probably hadn't mentioned it, you might not even have known that I had the microphone inside the violin or underneath the tailpiece at all there, maybe except for possibly the wire. If I was wearing black, you possibly still wouldn't have seen it anyway. And also they say that you can leave it in the violin case as well, so you don't have to keep taking it out. Obviously, just you can wrap up the cable. It's got one of those Velcro ties around the cable, so you don't have to keep removing the microphone. Obviously, the hook over one that I had to keep removing that and putting it back in its case, because I wouldn't be able to shut the lid of the case. But this one, pop the violin straight in, shut the case, zip it up, and off you go. Jobs are good. Just the negatives, if I had any, were that the cable's probably a little bit too short for me. That's just a personal preference for me. The cable's probably a good, I don't know, maybe a good couple of meters, something like that, maybe 1.5 meters, 1.75 meters. I haven't measured it exactly, but personally for me, and just the way I use it, I might have just preferred a slightly longer cable, but it's really not an issue. It would not stop me buying the microphone. As I say, I absolutely love the microphone, so it's a very, very minor detail there for me. and just possibly the price. The price is quite expensive, so if I go through that for you. The microphone retails at 739 euros, so it's a Danish company. You can buy it directly from their website, which is www.remic.dk. So the address of that will be coming up here now. They are working with UK and international suppliers as well to try and get the microphone out there internationally, but you can get it from their website in Denmark at the moment. Anyway, so rather than a third-party supplier or something, you can still buy it directly from them. So it's 739 euros, which as of today is about approximately, just rounded it up a little bit, is 630 pounds. So 630 English pounds, and in dollars it's about 996, so around about $1,000, obviously depending on the exchange rate, but as of today that's roughly how much the costs are. So the cost is quite high. £630 for a microphone is quite a lot of money for a microphone. However, it is exceptional. You get every single penny's worth from the £630. Yes, I would recommend, and I would buy it myself as well. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching this review. Sorry that it might have been a long review, but I just wanted to make sure that I covered everything and just give you all my thoughts and my honest thoughts and my opinions. Yeah, I love the mic. Go and buy one. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to watch my other review of the other microphone that you can use for studio recordings, the red version of this one that I've just demonstrated for you. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.